it's all you. Got this one, yeah. Nice try. Nice try. No, it's all you tonight. Yeah.
All right.
Just leave it at that.
Okay. Well, then I'll go from there. So I was actually.
Naturally.
Hey, Barbara.
How are you? No. How long ago was it been sitting here? No, I haven't been down here, but it looks old.
Well, it's just what they were trying to do doesn't seem to be working, so we've got to.
I'll do it afterwards anyway. Who knows? Okay.
It appears.
This is for,
Jeff coming in,
you know, we can use it for more than
Right.
one. More than one. There's two, I think, that
Well, that's. I agree.
have that.
Well, we did
Need a new
whatever
condition of approval.
But we
It's,
did.
trying whatever we could do.
I've after, so
the
we surely
certificate of compliance, and it's also,
Okay.
Exactly.
The same way that we research group.
the airstrip one.
Incentives for building back there. There's an upswing. We got to respond.
And
Okay.
yeah, the county needs to get back in the driver's seat.
Hello, how are you? Hi.
Barbara.
Hi. Good. How are you doing?
Good. It's called to order, January 20, 2016, first meeting of the year. Okay, pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michael, roll call. Noted. Okay. We have to get a new Sherman.
It is on the agenda.
Yeah, it is.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I thought that we decided we'd do this in February, not January.
We did.
We did.
It's always been February, Byron.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to continue it to February, that's fine.
Yeah, that was just for historical purposes. We did that way back when, 12, 14 years ago, so that in case there was a whole new slate of commissioners, they would have a month to kind of get to know one another and decide on who should be chair and vice chair. So that's why we pushed it 1 month off the calendar year.
Okay, well, we can table this item and bring it back at the February meeting.
Okay.
So moved.
So, everybody in favor?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public comment. This is 3 minutes. You can speak on something that's not on the agenda. So anybody that wishes to speak on this public comment is welcome. Public comment is open.
Paul Gorland. Up at the podium.
Okay, good evening. My name's Donald Gerland. It's not on the agenda, and I'm not filing an appeal in the future either. I found a way to comply with what I'm complaining about. But I'm here tonight to bring to your attention, my speech is in your package that you all got too, by the way. I'm here to bring to your attention an inappropriate and wrongful enforcement of Chapter 25.39 of the Codes and Standards of this county by Director Barnes of the Resource Management Agency. His new interpretation promulgated last week significantly impacts the people of this county and is the opposite of the longstanding language of Chapter 2539. He's completely turned it upside down and given it a totally different meaning. Director Barnes put his new law into practice last week without any public disclosure or hearings, without notice to or input from this commission, and against the express comments of several members of the elected board of directors of San Benito County. Chapter 2539 deals with nonconforming uses. Its intent is clearly spelled out. It's been there for years, that it is allowing and allows nonconforming uses to remain indefinitely and allows them to be modified and changed, even if they have to be rebuilt after an earthquake or a flood or a fire. There's no sunset clause in that chapter, and there's no other kind of a mandate to restrict replacement uses. If a business goes out of business, you get a new tenant. Well, there are restrictions, but not any mandate. In fact, Section 25.39, subsection 2C, specifically allows different uses to replace prior uses in a nonconforming property. Over long periods of time, of course, real estate will obviously experience changes in ownership, in tenants, and their desired types of uses in the building. The only restriction that Chapter 2539 places on future changes of use out of a nonconforming building is that they be of the same nature or of a more restricted nature. They don't say the same thing exactly. A shoe store has to stay a shoe store forever, or a candy store has to stay a candy store forever. It can't turn into a ice cream store. Well, that's exactly what Mr. Barnes has imposed. Okay, which I don't think was the intent of the ordinance at all. Same nature and more restricted nature are two separate categories of replacement uses. They are exemplary and not exclusionary. Okay, there's no legal basis for summarily prohibiting any replacement of any non-conforming use with a slightly different use, so long as it meets the same or more restricted manner or same or more restricted nature parameter. Can I go on for just a little bit more?
No, that's 3 minutes. Everybody's allowed 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, he's imposed a ruling that's just not there in law, and he needs to have the Board of Supervisors amend the law if he wants to do that. That's part of what a person like him does. Instead, he's just got a fiat that's completely opposite of an actual law that's on the records.
Okay, thank you.
So please look over what I gave you.
Anybody else? No speaker cards? Okay, public comment is closed. Consent agenda? Commissioners?
If there's no discussion, Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let me turn this off. Okay, regular meeting. So approving of minutes, everything on the minutes. That's okay? Okay.
That's already on.
Public hearing
Calendar.
on,
You've got the meeting calendar as the next item.
the meeting calendar. Everybody approve it?
We need a motion to approve.
Yeah, we need a motion to approve.
I move we approve.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public hearing on COC 1591, owner applicant Gordon Wynn, location on Torolla Way.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Michael Krause, Senior Planner, presenting Certificate of Compliance 1591 Wynn. The applicant is requesting that the county determine the number of legal parcels comprising approximately 20 acres, identified by assessor's parcel number 025100017. The project boundary begins approximately 2 miles directly east of the city of Hollister. Previous projects associated with this property include minor subdivision 119806. Approval for this project was granted June 6 of 2007. The approval allowed for a subdivision of one approximately 40-acre property to be subdivided into 4 lots with the remainder. Staff would like to draw your attention to condition of approval number 3, which was handed out via memo and is available for the public in the back of the chambers, which is standard indemnification. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15061B3 and approve the certificate of compliance with the recommended conditions. And staff is available for any questions.
Okay, anybody, any comments, commissioners? Anybody from the public?
No cards.
No cards? Okay, I guess it's closed. Public comments closed. Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to ask one question. Now, on 4 units with the remainder doesn't count, 4 lots, the remainder does not count as a lot, even though it's a buildable unit?
Correct. It would be the remainder to the subdivision. So this certificate of compliance would establish that remainder as the legal lot. Now, further, this COC, certificate of compliance, would trigger any improvements that are necessary for an additional lot in the subdivision that I mentioned in the staff report. The applicant has constructed all of the required improvements to meet the standard, including this lot into the subdivision. So the standards are met at this point.
All right. And then when would it go into a major subdivision?
This lot. This lot would trigger that.
This what?
This lot, this remainder, if it was the 5th lot instead of 4, would trigger a major. So the applicant subdivided for 4 and a minor. Now the applicant is coming for a certificate, which would trigger a major, and all the improvements that are associated with that. However, the applicant has already constructed all of the improvements that would be necessary for a major with this additional lot. So the improvements are done.
So then why not apply for a major then at that point?
The applicant would need to speak on that.
I think that's why I've been so confused on this,
Sure.
because
Sure.
I felt it was a major and not a minor.
It may have something to do with the date of the application. The minor subdivision had been going through the process for some time, and the applicant, and Gordon Wynn is here to speak on it, but I understand that the applicant wanted to finish the process of the minor and move forward. Gordon?
But then all the everything will be done under the major category?
Correct. I'm going to let Gordon Wynn speak on his rationale.
Well,
I'm
if
sorry.
if I could actually, Mr. Chair, speak to that as well. All the requirements that would have been required under a major subdivision are being met with this action. It just was done as a minor subdivision with a remainder, as opposed to a major subdivision all at once. So if it would have been done all at once as a major subdivision, the same requirements that are being required today, that are in place, would have been required as part of that major. But
So then why not just process it as a major then if you're doing all the major
and
stuff
again,
anyway?
it wasn't processed as a major when the minor subdivision was processed.
The application was taken as a minor.
Huh?
The application was taken in as a minor.
But you did all this stuff for a major.
Yes.
That doesn't seem to make any sense at all.
I'm not quite sure exactly why we did that. It was all through the engineers and stuff like that.
Okay.
But we're not splitting it any more than what it is right there.
Good.
That's done. So.
Okay.
Any
I
questions?
guess I don't truthfully have any problem with it as long as we make sure that we get all the fees and
Yeah.
No.
If I could also speculate, based on the date of the minor subdivision, this is not uncommon that we got minor subdivisions with a remainder when the structure was in place and the improvements were in place due to the growth management ordinance at the time.
Oh.
So
That's back then?
that's probably the logic behind the 2007 application.
Yeah, and it was probably started in 2004 or something like that,
Oh, there
or
you
5
go.
or something like that. So it was quite a while ago.
There you go. There's the answer. There's the answer as to why you did it this way. Okay.
okay.
Anybody?
Just for clarification, because I kind of had a question on that too. So basically what you had was a large lot. The remainder is not included as part of the overall project. You just split off 4 off of the main
In the
one.
2.7.
And the remainder was there all along, and it's not really included as part of the overall, and that's why it's not a 5-lot.
Correct. Yeah, in the 2007 minor subdivision, that was the remainder of the large lot.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready for a motion. Who has a
ready?
motion? I think Jeff Culler has a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we find the project categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15061B3 and approve certificate of compliance with the recommended conditions.
And the condition handed out, number 3.
And the condition added, number 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck with your project, Mr. Wen.
Okay. Use permit application for Seneca. 1124-15.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Robert Rivera. I'm an associate planner with the county, and I'm presenting use permit 1124-15. Fox Creek Ranch roadway runway for a private airstrip. The project applicant proposes to use an existing 2,000 feet roadway as a private airstrip for the personal aircraft. No improvements or development are planned. No grading or accessory facilities such as hangars or fueling sites. No grading is proposed as part of this project. The parcel is 176 acres and is located on Seneca Road. East of the property is Thousand Trails. That is a RV resort and campground. North, south, and west are also owned by Fox Creek, and they're of similar nature parcels, very rural. The aircraft landing fields are allowed in agricultural rangeland zoning districts as long as they are used for agricultural purposes. The use of the aircraft would be for identifying cattle and locating cattle within their properties and to survey their land. And the number of flights would be 1 to 3 flights a week to locate cattle and to keep an eye on the property. They proposed a no-fly zone east of the Thousand Trails, and that is in the conditions, as well as the air traffic to stay over the properties. This is a the type of aircraft that would be using the airstrip and would be held to the owner's aircraft, a single engine type aircraft. And I would like to draw attention to the same condition of approval that Michael Grassley handed out, the identification that would hold harmless the county. as well as some modifications to existing conditions, to the conditions number 9 and 10 that the applicants can speak to. On number 9, the FAA registration. Prior to the first use of the aircraft, the applicant shall provide proof of registration for a light sport aircraft if required, would be the modification. And the modification to number 10, aircraft limitation, would be to any and all changes to the number and make of a single engine aircraft beyond the original. So, staff would like to recommend that the applicant be found, or the use permit be found exempt from CEQA because of the agricultural use set forth in the county ordinance as a conditional use, and find that the location in relation to the general plan and community as a whole is properly located, and finding too that the proposed use complies with the conditions upon approval, made conditions upon approval.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for staff. Is it Mr. Rivera?
It is, yeah.
And your first name?
Robert.
Robert Rivera. And this is your first meeting with us.
It is my first meeting, yeah.
I'm going to call on Mr. Krause to stand up and introduce Mr. Rivera to the community and to the Planning Commission, because this is the first time we've met you or seen you. Can you do that, Michael? Welcome on board.
Chairman, Commissioner, this is Robert Rivera. He is our new associate planner with the county planning division.
Fantastic. And how long has he been on board, Michael?
Since about November.
Okay.
Yeah,
fantastic.
so he's pretty fresh, but he's doing a great job.
Well, we know that the press of business has fallen upon the building and planning department, so we're happy to see that they have help.
Thank you.
We hope that you enjoy your experience here and welcome on board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No problem. Okay, public, any comments from the public? No cards? I got a question.
Sure.
Now, it's kind of being restricted just a single engine aircraft is going to be there?
Of the owner, yeah.
Yeah. What if you want to get a helicopter? Is that going to, you have to come back in here? Because
It's
they
gonna
use
be
helicopters for,
restricted to single engine, similar type and model.
yeah, but that's like a,
Yeah, so a helicopter would probably have to come in. I would assume so.
yeah.
And
I've
Mr.
seen
Chair,
helicopters chasing the
Mr.
cows.
modifications also. The condition states, and we're gonna talk about some slight amendments to that condition right now, but it's may require. We just want to review it. If it's a similar type of aircraft and similar use, it's not going to require an amendment to the use permit necessarily. It would have to review it on a case-by-case basis. But we're not going to sit and list every type of aircraft that could potentially. And modifications to the runway. The runway can only support a certain type of aircraft. So modifications to the runway, that would require further review because then you're dealing with grading, you're dealing with cultural resources. So,
Mr. Chair, I was curious about the no-fly zone. Don't you guys have to coordinate that with the FAA or on some level? I mean, we can't just declare a no-fly zone and have it be recognized.
The FAA regulates the height of the plane, a minimum height of flight over populated areas. So as long as it's over a certain height, it's allowed. But this is a self-imposed no-fly zone. That would
up to a ceiling.
Yeah, there's a certain minimum height required.
This San Benito County no-fly zone,
correct,
is only going to apply to little guys cruising around
to this
lower
owner,
elevation.
Yeah, this owner and
it's not going to affect Southwest or JetBlue.
No, definitely
okay.
not. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, this would only affect this application.
Okay.
Solely.
Any more questions?
I think Ann was going to talk public comment.
There's no cards.
I know, but she's
Oh,
gonna...
okay. Ann, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ann Hall. I'm here on behalf of Fox Creek. Just to clarify a few things, your question about the no-fly zone, it's just a self-imposed no-fly zone to alleviate any concerns that people might be flying low over 1,000 trails, because there are a lot of people living there. So it's just an agreement that they'll state that they won't go low over the 1,000 trails in the more populated areas. And as Robert...
Hey, Annie, how is that enforced, by the way?
Well, I think the agreement would be as if 1,000 Trails started to complain that they were getting airplanes buzzing over them to the county. It gives the county a ability to go back to Mr. Barth and say, you're not complying with your own agreement to not fly too low over this populated area.
Okay.
So, and we'd like to thank staff for working on this. This is, some of the airplane terms are not the most common ones used on all the applications, so we've had some back and forth, and part of that is the clarifications that Robert mentioned earlier. And I think, like I said, we appreciate the ability to work with staff and clarify some of those things. But as Byron mentioned, or as Robert mentioned earlier, the FAA noticing would be, if applicable. That's condition number 8. That language needs to be added. And then 9 and 10, just the reference, instead of light sport, should be single engine. And on 10, the nature of single-engine aircraft, and any changes to any other type of aircraft obviously have to come back to the Planning Commission. But just to clarify what type of aircraft we're dealing with and make sure that's reflected correctly. It was last minute, we apologize, but I think we're all on the same page. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
No. Cool. I wish I had an airstrip. Could you imagine? Pat, we're going to Palm Springs. Get in the plane. Throw your bathing suit in the bag. That'd be awesome.
What does the commission wish to do?
Whose turn is it for a motion?
Your turn.
Yours.
Is it my turn? Oh, jeez. Thought you might say that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Planning Commission make...
Wait.
I'm sorry. If we could just clarify the
I'm in the
condition.
middle of a motion here,
Oh.
if you don't mind. No, I'm just kidding. But
I just was trying to clarify because I didn't have all the changes written down on the motion. Was the if required on number 8, or was that on number 9?
was the what? What was the question?
If required, here, let's make sure we get the conditions of approval right.
Registration if required on number 9.
Yeah, so if number 8, end it with if applicable.
We've got this right here.
Yeah, so,
We'll have to, if applicable.
yeah, in fact, we can.
So let the record reflect that the applicant's engineer has handed staff and county council her proposed changes that she articulated from the podium. They're being reviewed right now, and what say you?
So number 8, prior to first use of the airstrip, the applicant may be required to file Form 7480-1 if applicable, and then continue the condition notice of landing area proposal.
So is staff and county council in agreement with the proposed changes by the applicant's engineer?
Yes, and as it articulated previously, number 9 changes light sport to a single engine. Number 10 changes this type of aircraft to single engine aircraft in the first line. And then so the first line is going to read, due to the specific nature of single engine aircraft, any and all changes to other types of aircraft will require a modification of the use permit, which may require Planning Commission review and approval. And also, when you make the motion, if you could, on the staff recommendation where it says it's exempt from CEQA, if you could reference pursuant to Section 15301. Thank you.
Get out a pen. 15301. That's the statutory exemption?
Yes, and we also added the revised indemnification provision that was referenced in the last agenda item for WIN. It's the updated indemnification language.
Okay. Other than that, it's perfect.
Apologize.
Okay. All right. So here goes an attempt at a motion. I make a motion that the Planning Commission make the required CEQA exemption under Section 15301 and use permit findings set forth in the staff report as amended by not only the applicant's engineer tonight, which has been approved by staff and county council, but then also by staff as regards revised indemnity language, and that the Planning Commission therefore approve use permit 1124-15.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Next one is a notice of given for the Sunny site. What's that name of the project? Is that a Estates project? The planner is who's the planner? This one. Oops.
Give that to Shirley afterwards.
Okay. You're taking off? Okay. See ya.
Are you guys going to get a microphone program going down there too? How are you going to handle that? Portable?
Should we take a couple-minute break, or are they ready? Test it.
Test.
3 minutes for them to settle?
Test.
Do you guys need a couple minutes to get all settled and make sure the mic works and all that? Or are you ready to go? All right.
Mr. Chair, are we ready to?
Yeah, we're ready to proceed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, this item is vesting 10 of track map. Actually, this item is zone change number 14-181, which includes an environmental impact report in order to facilitate vesting 10 of track map number 1491. This is referred to as the Sunnyside Estates tentative subdivision map. Just to introduce the people in front of you and the people who are going to be presenting, myself, Byron Turner, Michael Krause, the senior planner, Josh Janowitz from Rincon Consultants, Christy Sabdo from Rincon Consultants, Shirley Murphy, our deputy county counsel, and sitting in for Nadia Costa is Matt Henderson, our special counsel on this project. So just a little to let you know how we're going to hear this project. We've got the introductions. Michael Krause is going to give us the project background. Josh is going to give us some project summary and deal with the EIR analysis. Then we can open up the public hearing. If there's an applicant presentation and a public comment, we can close it for discussion and deliberation, and then consider the staff recommendations on the zone change and the EIR certification. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael Krause to give us some background on the project.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Michael Krause, Senior Planner. The complete proposal includes the request for a zone change and a vesting tentative track map. Please note that only the zone change application is being considered tonight. The vesting tentative track map would come before the Commission upon board approval of the zone change, certification of the environmental impact report, and other necessary approvals. The project proposes development of 200 single-family residences, approximately 5.3 acres of parks and open space. Of that, we're looking at approximately 2 acres of open space within the floodplain. The proposed residential lots would range in size between approximately 5,000 square feet, the minimum, and approximately 13,824 square feet. The average lot size is 5,800 approximately. The project requires the certification of an environmental impact report, EIR, adoption of required CEQA findings, including a statement of overriding considerations, adoption of a mitigation and monitoring reporting program, and adoption of other findings that are required. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our environmental consultant, Rincon, and Josh will take it from there. You may use that.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, members of the Commission, members of the public. Josh Janowitz, Rincon Consultants. It's nice to see all of you again. Just a quick primer on the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, as we like to call it. What's the purpose of it? It's to inform decision makers and the public about potentially significant effects that could be caused by a project, to identify mitigation measures, to prevent significant unavoidable damage to the environment, and to provide the public an opportunity to comment. The CEQA process began with the Notice of Preparation, which was issued and sent out on September 9th, 2014. The noticing procedure for this Notice of Preparation included notifications to state and local agencies, as well as notifying all property owners within 300 feet of the proposed project. We also held a scoping meeting on September 18th, 2014, where we outlined the general scope of work for the environmental analysis and allowed the public and local and state agencies to comment on any aspect of the CEQA process. We subsequently completed the draft environmental impact report on October 29th, which started the 45-day circulation period, which ended on December 12th, 2015. And the final EIR was prepared and released on January 10th, 2016. The project underwent a comprehensive analysis of environmental impacts, and we considered all impact categories as defined by the CEQA guidelines. They're all listed here, but essentially we concluded that the proposed project would have significant impacts unless mitigated under the following issue areas: aesthetics, ag resources, bioresources, cultural resources, geology, soils, hazards, and traffic and utilities. And after mitigation, impacts to all these issue areas would be reduced to less than significant. However, we do have a few impact categories where impacts would remain significant and unavoidable even after adoption of the mitigation measures, which are included as an attachment to your staff report as part of the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Those significant unavoidable impacts would occur under the aesthetics, agricultural resources, greenhouse gas emissions, and as a result of construction noise during demolition, grading, and construction. The finding of a Class 1 impact requires that the Planning Commission make findings to justify the adoption of a statement of overriding considerations. The primary considerations allowing adoption of the statement of overriding considerations include smart growth measures. The project does propose to exceed Title 24 energy requirements. It's proposing to allow the application of solar on on the rooftops, and it also would include energy efficient appliances and also low impact design alternatives for stormwater filtration. Secondly, the project would include public amenities and improvements, including 5.3 acres of parks and open space, where approximately 0.4 acres of the project site would be used as a detention basin. Approximately 2.0 acres would be used would be dedicated as open space adjacent to the San Juan, the river, and 2.9 acres would be dedicated as a public park that would be open to the public. Last but not least, the construction of 200 residential units would obviously help the county satisfy a need for housing in the area. CEQA also requires that we consider alternatives as part of an environmental impact report. CEQA requires that we consider a reasonable range of alternatives, and as you can see on the slide here, we considered 2 no-project alternatives, including no project, no development, a no-project build-out under the existing land use and zoning alternative, the setback from the northern property line alternative, and the reduced density alternative. The reduced density alternative and the build-out under the existing zoning alternative were considered environmentally superior, as they reduced impacts in all issue areas compared to the proposed project. However, these alternatives would not meet the basic project objectives, and therefore staff is recommending that those alternatives be rejected in favor of the proposed project.
What does project objective mean in that sentence?
Project objective essentially means it's typically developed, but in this case, no, it means the construction of 200 residential units, the construction of infrastructure to support the project. It also includes a statement of fiscal neutrality as well, which can include the payment of fees and the formation of various financing districts to support the infrastructure. It's essentially the applicant's project objectives combined with any objectives that the county wants to see met as part of a proposed project. And it can vary depending on the type. The last but not least, the setback from the northern property line alternative would achieve the basic project objectives, but would incrementally reduce the land use compatibility impacts that were identified due to the project's location adjacent to the agricultural uses. However, given that the 2035 general plan envisions that this area would be developed in the future, and as a result has redesignated the site as residential mixed, staff can support the rejection of this alternative and the findings supporting the adequacy of the alternatives analysis in the EIR. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the final EIR was prepared and circulated on January 10th, 2015. We received one comment letter from Caltrans. As a result, we made minor revisions to the draft EIR to clarify the Caltrans intersection criteria and also to clarify the traffic impacts at the intersection of Union Road and Airline Highway, and also to clarify the mitigation measure timing. The amendments serve to clarify and strengthen the content of the EIR, but do not introduce significant new information, and therefore we do not, staff concludes that this project or this environmental impact report does not require recirculation as a result of the clarifications included in the final EIR. And that concludes the summary of the environmental impacts. Now, I'm going to turn it back over to Byron to close out, and we look forward to your questions and your comments. Thank you very much.
I want to make some further comments about the fiscal neutrality concept. Now, the general plan, our new general plan, acknowledges that future development and occupancy of new communities, including this project site, could negatively impact the local economy, and therefore contains policies requiring the preparation of fiscal impact assessment to demonstrate that specific development proposals will have a fiscally neutral or a positive impact on the county as a whole. Housing itself is a drain on the local economy because of the services that the county has to provide for it. So the county has, and you can, up on the screen, we have the general plan land use policy that requires this fiscally neutral or positive impact of development. We've successfully implemented this policy in the past with the Santana Ranch project and the San Juan Oaks projects, and the imposition of project-specific conditions of approval that require the formation of special districts or special fee payments or similar financial mechanisms designed to fully offset the county's recurring costs. So as part of the county's consideration of the project as a whole, specifically on the vesting tentative tract map, the project will be required to fund the completion of a fiscal impact study describing the economic benefits and or impacts and or agreed conditions of approval requiring the formation of the requisite special financing districts, payment of fees, or other similar financial mechanisms that would help ensure that the project would be revenue neutral. This is going to be reflected as a condition of approval on the vesting tentative map, but I wanted you to know that that was something that we've been thinking about all along, and wanted to point that out today as you're considering the zone change. We can't put the map on the property without the zone change, and the zone change has to go to the board first. Otherwise, we'd be having this discussion all at once. So I wanted to point the fiscal neutrality aspect out. Just in general, the San Bernardino County staff, Planning and Public Works, our consultant, County Counsel's Office, has completed a comprehensive review of this project. The environmental impacts have been reduced to the greatest extent feasible. The project is located in an area of the county that has been identified for future growth in the 2035 general plan, and the vesting tentative tract map will be conditioned to ensure fiscal neutrality. So it's staff's recommendation at this time that we open the public hearing regarding the environmental impact report and the zone change petition. Certify the environmental impact report that evaluates the impacts of development of the Sunnyside Estates project, prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, the CEQA guidelines, and the county's local CEQA implementation procedures, that you adopt the findings required by CEQA, adopt mitigation measures to reduce any significant environmental impacts where feasible, as identified in the EIR, adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and adopt the statement of overriding considerations. Also, it's recommended that the Commission adopt the general plan consistency findings and other findings as required by planning and zoning law and the county code provisions, and adopt the amendments to the San Bernardino County zoning map, approving zone change 14-81 to change the existing zoning designation for the project site from agricultural productive to single-family residential based on the findings and conditions of approval. The mechanism for all those adoptions are found in Resolution 2016-01, which is part of your packet. And so we have the aforementioned folks here to answer any questions you have on this project, and also the applicant is here as well. Yep.
Any questions before we open for
Not at
comment?
this time, I don't.
I just want to echo something that Mr. Turner said. I think that's hugely important for us as we go forward, not as regards this project in particular, but all the others that we're going to see in the months ahead. Quote, housing by itself is a net drain on the community, period, end quote.
I agree.
And there's a lot of people in this community that are really fuzzy about that. They think that building houses with impact fees and building fees and so forth somehow floats a boat. It may float a boat for a minute, but over the course of the life of that development, it's a net drain on the community. So you cannot, and I think it's going to be and the only reason I point this out now is just, like I said, as a preview to the future in the months ahead as these other projects we're going to see. When we are being asked to basically provide the bedrooms for Silicon Valley, remember, housing by itself is a net drain on our community without something more, without something else, by itself. And we have to be mindful of that. So anyway, that's my only editorial comment for the moment.
To add to your editorial comment, I think the boat floats at about $750,000. So anything 750 or over becomes more positive.
Okay.
Okay, just for clarification.
Okay, good to know.
I do have a question about fiscal neutrality on the project and if the park will be part of that. And because we're talking about basically a tax district, and if the park is part of the element of the project itself, and if we are able to get management fees for that in order for it to be maintained.
Yes, the park facilities will be considered as part of the fiscal impact assessment that the applicant will provide prior to finalization of the tentative map.
Okay. The other question would be legally, can we sort of, for continuity, and since this is along the River Park Trail, have a working relationship with the parks and the county to sort of blend that in and make it part of the overall idea? Is the applicant in favor of that, number one, and legally can we require that?
That's a great idea. Does it? You're on the Parks Commission, right, Commissioner Pierce?
Not anymore.
When you were, though, based upon your familiarity of the River Park plan, as you see this project, is it something that could augment that?
It could be a trailhead. There's multi-uses for this kind of thing. The River Park Trail, in its concept, actually would go from the historical park out by Tres Pinos and Bellado all the way into San Juan Bautista. So anything along the river and anything that's adjacent to the river that would buy into the overall park trail, now it's just connecting the dots.
Right.
But yeah, but it could, because
like
of its location, because
segments
of the trail.
Of train track, right?
With the what?
It's like a segment of train track. This project could present an opportunity to have one segment done.
Yeah, because behind the high school, The regional park area is part of that, so that would go for almost Union Bridge. And they're working on, hopefully, maybe Jim can. Okay, Jim. There's a Granite Rock thing to where we could take it up to the Nash Road crossing, and then we could take it on into 4th. But a lot of it is river park trail, and so it would be a pedestrian, equestrian kind of thing, not motorcycles or anything like that.
Right.
And it would be cooperating and getting the higher bench, the stuff that wouldn't be flooded out during regular rains.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we get any more projects like this for continuity, I think it's kind of saying we could start it here and say this is something that we should implement on future projects as well.
So was, I guess the question, Commissioner Pierce's question to staff is, was the potential for this project to augment the River Park concept considered?
Yes. Staff did take into consideration the Riverway Parkway.
What did you conclude?
We looked at the potential for access off of Hospital Road and through the subdivision itself to integrate into the River Parkway.
And
we concluded that.
What was the conclusion?
It was consistent with the conceptual River Parkway plan.
Oh, yes.
Insofar as it does include approximately 2 acres of public open space that are adjacent to the river. So you could integrate, as the commissioner had indicated, potentially in the future, trails and other connecting segments along this property frontage. And in addition, it also has 2.9 acres of parkland that would be dedicated for public use. So in all told, 4.9 acres of open space and parks would be proposed for dedication as part of this project, which could certainly integrate to future River Parkway plans.
But as we sit here today, there's no recommendation from staff or consultants that be included as a condition of approval. At this
point, it's a little premature, only because we're considering just the zone change at this point. That when the tentative map comes forward, that's when the commission could get into more discussions.
We can have a conversation about that then?
Conditioning the project to provide certain amenities within those areas that I just referenced.
Okay. So we can just table that, because I don't know about you guys, but I think that's a wonderful idea, and we can table that until we get to the map stage. Correct?
Thanks.
Yeah.
We can certainly have that discussion, though, in the meantime before you get there, too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to take a straw poll right now, you can, but I think what you'll find is that we would be very much in favor of this project participating in this river trail thing that we've been talking about for years and years and years, and we can all agree it would be a wonderful asset to the community.
And I think that some language can be considered for a condition of approval as well.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be wasting your time in drafting a condition along those lines.
My name is John Brigantino. We're dedicating the property, and so we had to dedicate a certain amount of land, which we did. And then, as the county is, we're just dedicating the property. You can do whatever you want with it, but it's going to be the county's property. There'll be the financing mechanism, whatever, to maintain what's there. We've also there's a portion of it that is the retention pond. And I think there was something written that said that detention pond can be flattened or whatever, made bigger, but the area that is used for the detention pond is still the area that we would, that's not. I forget what's not doesn't go up against a certain amount. We have a detention pond that can't be used for park.
Correct.
Doesn't count towards the credit. But they said it could be made bigger, but our credit is still going to be this big, but the detention pond might be this big, so it can change what the park looks like. But we're just dedicating the land. That's what the.
So, John, let me see if I understand you correctly. What I hear you saying is, like, we just want to dedicate whatever land we need to in order to satisfy the requirements and get this thing approved. So do you necessarily care where the land is that you're dedicating? In other words, if it was a dedication of land that was consistent with a river park system, does it matter to you?
No, it is. That's why we changed we took lots out. We took out 3 lots and changed it all around. We met with the staff. We met with the parks people. We came to a parks meeting.
Okay.
We did all that stuff. We took 3 lots out.
So you've already configured this thing to plug into the River Park deal.
Yeah, it's perfect plugged in. It's already done.
Oh, done.
We've already met. We already had the planning. We already been at the Parks Commission meeting.
Wonderful.
Met with them. We dealt with staff. We took out lots. Took out 3 lots just to make the park bigger, and we set it up just so it'll be perfect for the.
Well, that's good news.
So that's already done.
That's good news.
We don't need to go over that again. We've already done that.
Well, we don't know all that you've done,
Okay,
so sorry. You got to catch
that's-
us up to speed a little bit. I know you've been on a journey, but we don't know what you've done.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that's good news.
Open the public comment. It's open. Michael, any cards? No cards? Oh, there's one.
Sorry, sir. I'm Valerie Eglin with REACH San Benito Foundation, and we have looked at some of the aspects of this project, and it, of course, looks like a very neat kind of configuration of a lot of little houses. I express my concern about how tight-knit this is together, and that there is very little connectivity or relationship to paths and bicycle complete street elements that need to be considered, especially if you're going to have kids in this area that are going to be accessing the River Parkway. The River Parkway is going to add a great deal of value to this project. So how to have, and I believe you did take it to the Parks and Rec Commission, and they talked about having access from the development to the River Parkway and making that also an area where you would have public access and some area where people could go, that this is not a walled community. It has become the habit in San Benito County around Hollister to have walled areas that do not contribute to the well-being of the city itself. There is no relationship from one little community to the next within the greater community. And this is against all the psychological elements that create a happy city. So for me, I believe that the whole plan needs to be tweaked such that it is within the 21st century and accommodating our River Parkway.
So those, Valerie, those are mainly site configuration, design concerns that you have, right? And if they are, query whether those might also be more appropriately discussed at the map stage as opposed to tonight, which is EIR and zone change.
However,
so can you
I think it's
come
important.
back to that next meeting about that?
Those elements, if they're aware, oftentimes they'll have something written on paper, already say, okay, we got it down right there. And then you come back in and say, well, we need this. Then it goes to added expense for the customer to deal with rewriting things again. So the more they're aware of as far as the needs of the community, the more efficient their building and mapping will be. And that's why I decided I should bring it up.
And just to address the speaker, actually there is a place to take this up beforehand, because all of these developments for their park element have to go in front of the Parks Commission before they come to us for the parks approval. This blends into the master plan, and it does allow connectivity down at the bottom of the project to get onto the River Park Trail. So it's not really completely walled off. Within the project itself, maybe it is. And maybe you could have a couple of pedestrian walkways that way, but they can just as easily in this environment walk on the street surface to get down to the River Park Trail for access, and then the River Park Trail could end up taking them from element to element. But really, if you want to get to it real quick and fast, if you see something like this coming up in front of the Parks Commission for approval, that's really the time to nip it in the bud right there and ask for maybe linear parkway connection. Kind of what we're doing on the outside of Fairview. we're trying to work on a linear parkway from Ridgemark down to Anderson Homes.
Exactly.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, Michael? Any more speakers?
One side.
Both sides.
Oh, okay.
No. Public comments closed. Take it back to the commission. Commissioners, any questions?
I had a kind of a more philosophical question I wanted to ask of staff and consultants and county council, and it's this. To what extent was, if any, was affordability considered or factored into this project as it was analyzed thus far? And, sorry, lawyers, we always have a little tail, right? And the second part of my question is, where are, and this is not for you guys who aren't from here, but more to San Benito County, where are we as a county, generally speaking, in pursuing affordable housing, in complying with Sacramento's requirements, and philosophically as a community? I just wanted to kind of take our temperature on that. And it may not even apply to this project in particular, but I did want to use it as an opportunity to make that inquiry because I don't know where we are on affordable housing. I would challenge anybody in this room to tell us where we are.
With regard to, I'll take the second question and I'll let discuss project specific, but with regard to overall affordable housing, our housing element is being reviewed right now by the state. We've had some preliminary discussions with them about what we expect back from them. We do expect some edits to be made. We had that discussion here with the commission about do we want to say we're going to provide affordable housing or do we want to require affordable housing? And I believe that the commission put us off in the direction of we need to start looking at requiring affordable housing for future projects. With that said, we have no affordable housing requirement in our codes right now, and so there is some incentives for affordable housing written into our code, but no requirement.
And that would hold true as regards in lieu of fees or actual construction of units, correct?
That's correct.
No requirement for either.
No requirement, and we have some affordable housing requirements in some of our other developments that were negotiated through a development agreement.
Voluntarily by the applicant.
There was negotiation points on both sides, but yeah.
Okay.
Also, we do have some. I mean, are you talking about the county as a whole, including the cities?
No, I'm not talking about the city.
Okay, because
my understanding is that the city of Hollister and San Benito County are both in a less than desirable position as regards Sacramento and grant funding with respect to their housing elements, because the perception is that we are not doing enough as a community. So, I mean, moral obligations aside, just as regards Sacramento and that grant funding, my understanding, right or wrong, is that both the city of Hollister and the county need to step it up a little bit quickly.
Well, it's just kind of discussions I've had, nothing on the record or anything, but South Valley Housing is looking for land, and they're trying to find affordable land. Chispa's got that project out off of Buena Vista that they were going to take to us, but then because of some situations, I think they're taking it to city because of water connection. They have to be within the city in order to make the water connection, and that would be an affordable. But I think the bigger problem, the bigger deal is if the county is going to be able to do any low market or below market kind of housing, it's going to have to be tucked in so close to the city to make the land affordable enough and still be able to do the smaller lot size to get a number of lots to get the pricing down.
Which I think would be something that holds true along the lines of build the unit paradigm.
Yeah.
But if instead we go up to 30,000 feet and say, like, all developments should help shoulder this burden but responsibility that we have to the community, then maybe that speaks more to in lieu of fee type paradigm. You know what I mean? Because I agree with you. You don't put affordable below market housing out in the middle of nowhere where they're not close to public transportation, they're not close to services and health clinics and all that stuff. It just makes no sense. But if someone's going to make $300 million on some development that's 6 miles from town, that's a lot of money. And we don't need to make Bay Area or LA people rich without them helping us meet our responsibility as a community. And aside from the responsibility to Sacramento and CDBG funds and all of that stuff, I do think we have a moral duty to provide affordable housing to our community.
And there's no disagreement on that. The problem is anything within city water has to be annexed. It has to be in the city. So even though we can start the project, the city's still going to pick it up and they're going to take credit and run with it. So that means it only gives us an area in the county where Sunny Slope water, and actually we're looking at that area tonight, one of those areas tonight. So we're very limited in what we can be allowed to do without establishing new water, district water or something like that on our own. The city will go out with their sewer to almost anywhere because they like to bring the fees down. But the water is the bigger issue, especially on the whole west side of town. Actually, from probably Memorial Drive all the way over to the west side of town.
Right.
So we're faced with these restrictions too, and so I guess you could say, yeah, there can be an in lieu fee or some kind of a fee-based thing, or you can try the inclusionary. It seems like if you did a fee-based thing, then at least you could take the money anywhere and maybe take it over and get a bigger bang for the buck over on the west side or the north or some other areas where
that seems to make more sense to me, frankly, because it allows better planning, I think, to allocate those resources to geographical areas that make better sense. But I just don't, again, from a philosophical standpoint, I think the time is now that we acknowledge and step up to the responsibility that we have as a community to provide affordable housing. Let me say this in closing, that years ago we had a whole bunch of ordinances and structures and fee things in place, all of which were scrapped, dismantled, thrown on the trash heap when the market just dried up. And in order to provide, so that was us as a county responding to market conditions, right? Mm-hmm. We had to provide incentives, and we had to make it as attractive as possible to build because no one was building a doghouse in those years. Well, in the same vein, we have to be responsive to the market now. Things are on the upswing. Things are heating up. There's a lot of money being made out there. There's a lot of units being planned. And if our responsibilities as a community have not changed, query whether there's an opportunity now to help meet our responsibilities from these folks that are going to come into our community and make a whole bunch of money. I think there is. And this isn't the Board of Supervisors. I'm just raising it as an issue tonight, and I hope that we can continue the conversation. And again, to John Brigantino and his family, I'm not saying this is even applicable to them. I just, a lot of these thoughts were triggered as I was reviewing this stuff.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to expand on that a little bit. What I remember about the acreage out on South Side in that area was that we needed to have land available for affordable housing. And that was one of the reasons that we looked at this residential mix, that if someone wanted to come in and do an affordable housing project quickly, they would need this kind of zoning and this kind of land use. To build this development now is the residential mix at market value rates. That is just not what this was originally set up to do. And I really believe a project with this density has to have some affordable housing with it. And, that's what this was set up for originally. And this goes back years. I know that. It's got to go back 12 years. But that's what it was set up for. It was set up so there could be affordable housing in this area because it was one of the areas that the city could actually take care of the sewage and that the water could be taken care of by Sunny Slope.
And the ground's been broken. Hospital Road, the Riverview project.
Exactly. And then if I could ask just a couple questions of staff on this project.
Go ahead.
I saw the wastewater and the water and Sunny Slope and the city of Hollister. How does that go through the process? Does it have to actually, once we give permission now, then it will go through LAFCO? How does it work process-wise? Do they have permission now from those entities?
Will serve letter from Sunny Slope Water District, and they've also received a similar sort of conditional use letter from Hollister Wastewater District as well. The infrastructure is there. It has enough capacity to serve this project both from a wastewater standpoint and from a water standpoint. I believe that annexation will be required in order to provide sewer service. However, I'm also fairly confident that the Sunny Slope Water District, though, has already annexed this property into its service area, and so annexation will not be required for water service. And then I think the applicant could probably clarify, but I believe I'm correct.
It's in the Sunny Slope Water District, been annexed into that, and it's in the city's sphere of influence for their wastewater already.
Do you want to?
It's within the city's sphere of influence, so annexation, I believe, will still be required, and you'll have to consult directly with LAFCO in order to facilitate ultimately connecting to the city's wastewater facility. But that process is relatively straightforward, assuming, of course, that the project's approved.
It is in the sphere of influence within the city.
It's a sewer service area.
Sewer service area. There's a bit of a gray area, so formal annexation will be required. However, again, there is a process that LAFCO administers in order to facilitate the future connection.
Is that new under the new director for the annexation as part of the sewer? Because before, all you had to do was be within the district in order to achieve that. But under the new director, who's defining new things all the time, do you now have to be annexed to get sewer? And if you have annexation of this project, and we've leapfrogged this, now we got some issues because you're leapfrogging out there.
The leapfrogging issue has not come up. However, let me put it this way. Per the new director, there is a more formal process for ultimately connecting to receive wastewater service than there was previously. So in essence, the director has gone on record and said that a more formal annexation process he's going to implement, and anybody who is not formally within the service boundary is going to have to go through essentially an annexation procedure.
Okay, did you know that you have to be adjacent to city in order to be annexed? And how is that going to work?
Not an annexation. It's an out of service area.
Could you come to the mic? We need you on record.
Okay, so we've already gone to LAFCO, and the city is under. According to the city, they don't think anything else has to be done. But like they were saying, Bob Braitman from LAFCO wants one more step to be done. So we can't take that last step until we have a CEQA document certified. So once it's certified, we go back, and it's called an out-of-sewer service area agreement. It's not an annexation.
Right.
So there is no annexation. Just the agreement.
I'm sorry, John. It's called an out of service.
Out of sewer service area agreement? Augie? That's what's out of sewer. Out of agency area agreement. Just because it's not within the city limits, it's perfectly legal to sewer the property, but he just wants this agreement. So the city and him went kind of to a little battle, and they just decided that because the city just wanted to serve it without another step.
Okay, thank you.
Just to elaborate, this is a procedure under LAFCO law where if a property is within the city's sphere of influence, they can reach an agreement with the city for the city to provide out of jurisdiction water or sewer service, and that agreement has to be approved by LAFCO. But when it's within the sphere of influence, it's a fairly simple matter of the findings that they have to make and what have you.
So this is the extra step because it's out of the...
Right.
Okay.
But also, doesn't this have to be approved by the city council?
Well, of course, but that would be, they would have an agreement, so they would have to buy in on the agreement.
Yeah. I sat in a city council meeting one night, and they did one of these. And so it's almost like if they decide you're putting too much stress on their sewer system, they're just not going to let you in. So the city kind of controls the entire sewer, and I think that's part of the LAFCO idea behind all of that, too. So then if they approve it, then it can move forward.
I think the city picks and chooses who they allow.
Well, the problem is this sewer system is an area, it's been designated as what, not a district, but an area sewer system, not a city sewer system.
Yeah.
So it should be, it should be okay for the entire area. And it should be an automatic. Instead, we're adding a lot more government influence into it. So,
any more questions or comments?
No.
For staff? I got one for Byron. When are you going to start working on making it mandatory for the housing element for low-income housing or moderate-income housing for new developments?
That's a discussion we'll bring back to you, and also have that discussion with the board as part of our housing element, as our housing element returns to the hearing bodies.
Like I mentioned one time, 10% every 10th house built at cost to help, the lower income person.
Every 10 houses built at cost?
That's why they did in Salinas.
Or how about if a builder built every 10th house at cost, but then sold it at market, sold that 10th house at market, pay that amount into an in lieu of fund. I kind of like the in lieu of fees.
I like the mixture of everybody in, not just one area.
Oh, you like to mix it all up?
Yes, I like to mix it all up.
Oh,
I like the mixture.
All right.
And then put restrictions, of course, that
You know,
gentleman or where it can't sell their home for 30 years.
I think really smart, intelligent arguments can be made on both sides of that. Yeah. Because on the one hand, you've got proximity to public services and transportation and all this stuff.
We're talking about modern income, school teachers and all that. They can't afford $500,000 homes.
Not Section 8.
Not Section 8, no.
Right. Okay. Good point.
Yeah.
But if there was an easy answer to that question, it would be we'd be doing it already, because they've been kicking this around since the 60s.
And then nobody gets on it.
That's right.
I mean, Salinas did it for many years.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be the ones to crack that nut, Pat.
Yeah,
we'll
good.
figure it out.
I'm sure we will.
I don't have anything else, Mr. Chair. Ready for a motion?
You guys ready for a motion?
I'm good. Go ahead.
Good.
I think Commissioner Pierce is due for a motion, isn't he?
Commissioner Pierce.
I already did one tonight. Thank you.
I can't make this one.
Pressure. Okay, I would like to make a motion for to adopt the resolution 2016-01 and conduct a public hearing regarding environmental impact report and the zone change petition number 14-181. Certify the environmental impact report that evaluates the impacts of development of the Sunnyside Estates project prepared pursuant to CEQA and the CEQA guidelines and the county local CEQA, and adopt the findings required by CEQA, adopting mitigation measures to reduce any significant environmental impacts which were feasible as identified in the EIR, adopt a mitigation monitoring program and reporting plan to adopt a statement of overriding considerations, adopt a general plan consistently finding other findings required by planning and zoning law and county code provisions, and adopt the amendments to the San Bernardino County zoning map and approve zoning change number 14-81 to change the existing zoning designation for the project site from productive AP to single-family residential R1 based on the findings and the conditions of approval. I think I'd also like the approval of set forth in the Planning Commission Resolution 2016-01 and all exhibits there and any staff changes. How am I doing?
There were any.
How'd I do? Did I get it all in? I think I threw some extra in, too.
One point of clarification. I thought I heard you say zone change 1481 instead of
14-81.
It should be 14-181.
Really?
Typo right there.
I guess there's a typo on my sheet. So I stand corrected, and please include that on the record.
And with that correction, I would second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay.
You were
41.
kind of worried there for a while, John, huh?
Okay.
Is that it?
The next.
Huh?
No, we got something else there.
There is.
Nope. Just gonna make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next plan commission is 26.
That's
Please
right.
note that you're adjourning to next Tuesday at
Tuesday.
6 p.m.
Special meeting.
Special meeting.
Okay.
Here.
And to Rincon and our consultants, thank you guys for helping us out here in San Bernardino County. Appreciate you being here.
Robert, I think we blew over the top of this. Microwave?
Did this one get?
You know what? It's not on here. Which is that one?
It would be, maybe that was on the consent agenda.
You moved to adjourn, didn't you?
I seconded. Dan moved.
Yeah.